Ghost of Yotei is easily one of the most anticipated sequels in gaming right now, and also just one of the most anticipated PlayStation titles coming out. So much so that it just wrapped up an exclusive PlayStation State of Play featuring a 20-minute long gameplay deep dive. After watching this presentation, I'm sure that Ghost of Yotei will be one of the most impressive sequels we've seen to what was already hailed to be a near masterpiece in Ghost of Tsushima. But this is no easy task. We've seen many games over the years attempt to continue the story and gameplay of what was very well received originally and seem to only divide the fanbase or be quickly deemed a failure for all its shortcomings. Battlefront 2, The Last of Us 2, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdoms are some cases that quickly come to mind. But so let's take a look at every new detail we received in today's presentation and talk about why I believe Ghost of Yotei will be the perfect blend of needed changes and improvements while keeping and polishing what also works so well. So I think I'd like to separate things I point out in this video into what's kind of the same and returning from Ghost of Tsushima and what's new or completely different, because there's actually a lot of both. So of course, the first thing you notice off the bat with the presentation are the new graphics. I've seen mixed reviews on this. A lot of people seem to think the game looks exactly the same as Ghost of Tsushima, and it doesn't really bring or change a lot visually for them. I personally almost completely disagree. And while yes, I can't necessarily say that the graphics exceeded my expectations in any ways, I do personally think that this game still looks absolutely incredible and it's delivering on that front. I think what makes it kind of hard for a series like Ghost of Tsushima is that the original game looks so beautiful all the way back on last gen hardware with the PS4. The art style was so brilliant that it's still to this day on the PS4 looks incredible. One of my most viral TikToks I made back in the day was about how it makes no sense to me, bro. You could look at the game at any frame and just take a picture and it could be like something that people dreamed of 20 years ago. And so of course we did eventually get the PS5 upgrade with the director's cut, which only improved on what we already had. But that improvement again already looks incredible. Ghost of Tsushima is to this day probably one of the greatest looking video games ever made. And so I do think that there was no reason for them to drastically change the way that Ghost of Yotei looks. Obviously made in the same engine, I do think once we actually get the game in our hands and are able to look at the game on our 4K monitors, 4K TVs, HDR, OLED screens, that's when you'll really see the differences in how they're able to really maximize and utilize the hardware that we have now with the PlayStation 5 and add in a bunch of minute little details, ray tracing, HDR. Like, we have to keep in mind that we're only able to watch this game through YouTube so far, and YouTube is notorious for compressing high detail in video. So yes, I think the graphics look already incredible, and I think for the people that think it doesn't, you should just wait for the game to come out so you can really feel it in your hands and look at all of the new extra detail that I'm sure they added to an already extremely visually impressive games and engine that they used and created. The next thing I of course want to talk about is the gameplay, which seems to actually be very different while still maintaining the core of what made the first game so fun and exciting to play. The biggest change is that we now have different weaponry, being a single katana, dual katanas, odachi, a spear, kusarigama, plus of course the ranged options like kunai, bows, the new Tanegashima rifle, and of course the throwables that we got in the last game. There's also a new disarming mechanic. This I think is going to be very interesting because I'm curious to see how difficult it is to get away from enemies or play the game while disarmed. And not only can you be disarmed yourself, but you can disarm your enemies, leaving them completely defenseless. I think this is going to just add a lot more realism to the combat, because now thinking about it, it is a little weird that you are fighting to the death a lot of the time with all of these weapons on you and you never drop one of them. Like, I feel like that kind of just made sense to add. But yeah, this will obviously replace stances for combat variety with different enemies, so different weapons now are going to be more effective against different enemy types. I think this is just genius. I never had a problem with the stances, but I did find it a little bit too simplistic once I reached a point of mastering the game. I personally played Ghost of Tsushima on the max hardest difficulty, and I still felt like there was a lack of challenge once I mastered and understood, okay, I'm going to use the stone stance for sword types, I'm going to use the circle stance for the shield types, and it just became a little bit too simple and too easy to swap between those and just get advantage advantages against your enemies. While I do think it will be similar, I think now having actual different weapons to worry about, there's going to be a lot more variety in how you're able to play and how you decide to play and how your enemies decide to attack you. Maybe there's a big brute, but he also has a spear, so he's got tank abilities plus range. Like, this is going to be really interesting for me. And of course, there's also the new mysterious wolf that tags along with you on your journey. This is obviously a brand new gameplay change, and apparently it also is going to be useful in battles, which I thought was a little jarring when I first saw it, but interesting nonetheless. Now for the exploration and world mechanics. The open world and exploration seems to be far vaster and taking more elements from a Tears of the Kingdom style of gameplay, I think. There's now a new spyglass for spotting things in the distance, which does remind me of a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. They kind of want you to look and just find anything that seems interesting to you out in the world. If you can see it, you can go to it. And now you're able to use this spyglass. If you can look at something and tag it, it'll identify what you're looking at. And so this opens up a natural progression of exploration way better than the previous game did. Obviously, the map is going to be much larger than the last game, so I think this is a great mechanic, great change that they added here. You can also find new altars of reflections for gaining new abilities. Obviously, we had a bunch of different things on the side for exploration in Ghost of Tsushima, like the bamboo strikes. I forget the name of the others, but these were some of my favorite parts of the game. I love having different reasons to go around and explore every inch and cranny, every single part of the map that you choose to. And I'm sure that this game looks to reward you even more for that. Another brand new thing we also have in the game now is the new camping system, which is another reason this kind of reminds me of Zelda a lot. But I believe you're able to set up camp almost everywhere, and it actually brings story and characters and upgrades and progression right to you, which I think is very, very interesting, and I'm really curious to see how this works in game. But this brings me to the next thing that is, of course, brand new, the story. This seems to be different all the way down to the way that it's told to you. They seem to be going for a completely non-linear story progression, which is a little different from how Ghost of Tsushima tried to do this. You were able to tackle different side missions, explore different parts of the map that you are allowed to in any order that you want, but there was a sense of linear progression. You did have to complete the main story and unlock different parts of the map as you progress through the story. But this game seems to allow you to attack the story in the world however you choose. It seems to want to offer the most freedom possible for exactly how players want to play the game. There's now clues you can find encased cards to lead you to new adventures, and depending on where in the map you decide to go through, following those clues will lead you to completely different styles of gameplay, like stealthy ninja battles or all-out samurai fighting in completely different parts of the map. Like, I think that's genius. But to talk about the actual story, of course, we have a brand new antagonist with her own fresh story. You have a bounty on your head that only gets bigger as you chase after the Yotei 6, a group that murdered your family as a child. And after 16 years away in the south, Atsu is returning to act her vengeance, without much care if she lives or dies while doing it. And one of the most interesting gameplay features that makes the story experience so different in this game is the ability to quickly switch between playing through Atsu's past or present. I'm not sure and doubt that this feature will be possible on actually every part of the map. That would be kind of crazy, but I think this is going to be a very, very interesting and fun feature. Imagine exploring a random lake that you discover while just roaming around and playing through the game, and you switch to her past self, and then you get this crazy backstory about a specific memory from her past. Maybe she was with her family and that's their favorite place that they used to go fishing. I think that's gonna be a really, really fun way to tell the story, and this is one of the reasons why I think gaming and anime are two of the best storytelling mediums out there. Like, you just can't do this on TV or movies. You can also go after bounties yourself as side missions for extra money for your journey, to alternatively just buy upgrades from merchants. This will be another interesting gameplay change, because what it sounds like is it'll allow players the freedom to choose whether they want to go through exploration to unlock their upgrades, or do they want to just go for bounties, more fights, more battles to earn more money and unlock those same upgrades. I think that's also a really nice, interesting change in order to allow players to be free to play the game however they choose. There also seems to be a heavy focus on the characters you'll meet along the way, all with their own dedicated section in the menu. And then, of course, there are many other features returning, like photo mode. I absolutely loved the photo mode in Ghost of Tsushima. I have hundreds of pictures to this day on my PlayStation that I probably am never gonna just look back at, but I just have so much fun. And I find the way that the game looks to be so beautiful that I'm just like an old dad. Like, I see any frame, any shot that I'm just walking through the mountains or traveling through fields, and I'm just like, wow, this is so beautiful right now. I have to take a picture, and I go through the process of editing it and everything just to let it sit in my camera roll. I don't know what's wrong with me, but for that reason, of course, I am excited to see this return in Ghost of Yotei in an even more impressive looking game. Just go ahead and follow me on Instagram right now, because I'm gonna need an outlet to post all of these. And then there's also the different modes you can experience the game, like in Japanese, the black and white Kurosawa mode, the Takashi Miike mode, which brings out close camera angles, gritty visuals, enhanced gore and mud effects, or even the new Watanabe mode that gives you lo-fi tracks while you play the game. I find that one kind of funny, but also really cool. Like, I know there's a lot of people that like to play open world games like this and kind of just roam around the map. I actually personally also like to just have videos like that up on my second monitor while I do work, so that's gonna be a perfect addition for me. And then obviously, of course, the brilliant weather and environment changes are also returning. I'm really curious to see if we get more variety than what we got in Ghost of Tsushima, which was already very varied with snow, heavy rain, thunderstorms, bright and sunny days, overcast. I wonder how they decided to improve on that. Like, that's gonna be an interesting development in itself. And of course, also the customization looks better than ever before. The amount of player freedom they're offering here really just tells me they're looking to make this an experience more than just a game. The amount of customization in Ghost of Tsushima was already great, but I'm sure it goes without saying that being able to wear whatever outfit you feel the most comfortable in, or customizing your charms to gear towards whatever playstyle you like best, really does go a long way with immersion, especially in a game with a world as vast as this one. So I think I covered just about everything that got revealed, and I know exactly what you're thinking right now. How can you call this a successful sequel before it's even released? We won't know for sure if Ghost of Yotei really nailed it as a sequel until we actually have it in our hands, but I wanted to make this video to combat the really odd narrative going around that this game brings nothing or not enough new to the table, or that the woman lead for the protagonist is just for the sake of being woke, or that there was no need for the sequel to tell a brand new story instead of just continuing Jin's story. I think I made it very clear in this video that there is a lot of new coming to the table here, and everything new I think will be more than welcome additions to a formula that already works so well, while still keeping that core formula intact and introducing minor adjustments that might be necessary. This, in my opinion, is exactly what you do in order to deliver a rewarding sequel that feels like it had a reason to exist, while also still pleasing fans of the previous game. I personally have always been a fan of the new main character Atsu since her reveal. I don't feel the sense of any Star Wars sequel trilogy, Rey Skywalker, woke business at all here, but I also just trust Sucker Punch. I think they very clearly have another great story to tell with a great character, both with a lot of depth. And for anyone saying that we should have just got Ghost of Tsushima 2, I hate to break it to you, but Jin Sakai's story was finished. His entire character arc that kind of defined his game, world, and story was complete after the Iki Island DLC, which you should absolutely play if you haven't. I'm not saying they couldn't have forced something new in there to give him another reason to fight through a new adventure, but listen to that key word I said there, force. The decision to move on to a new character, story, world, and surrounding characters was absolutely the right call, regardless of how much we love Jin Sakai. But so yeah, how are you feeling about Ghost of Yotei now after the presentation? Did I hit it right on the head and you're also super excited, or did this just make you more upset about it? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I will of course be covering the game in some form when it releases, but that's gonna be it for me, and